We are so excited to have you here with us today. This is the second of this training and workshop program that's here as an additional layer of support for our state and local associations in training and resources for fair and attainable housing. Of course, NAR is committed to advancing fair and attainable housing at the national level, but we're also here to support you in the work you do at the state and local level. We're really hoping that at the end of this session, you'll have 1 or 2 nuggets of an idea that you can bring back to your association to share. What we know from working with our state and local associations on this issue is that the quality of the impact you make is not tied to the size of your association. I know we have associations of all sizes in the room. The quality is really tied to the commitment, the strategy, and the consistency of your members and staff. So what we're working on doing here today is supporting you in finding ways to advance education, catalyze culture change, and inspire systemic improvements in fair and attainable housing initiatives in your state and local community. So throughout the workshop, we're going to introduce you to NAR points of contact, share tools, success story, and provide some policy training to help you work smarter rather than harder so that you can make significant impacts to advancing access to home ownership in your communities. Then we're going to give you the opportunity to talk to each other in the breakout rooms, along with an NAR expert, to discuss the unique challenges and opportunities you're facing in order to develop some tangible and actionable outcomes and understand some ways that you can tap in to NAR to help your members. This webinar is going to be recorded. You're going to receive, shortly after the webinar, you'll receive a debrief email to links to the resources that are provided all throughout this session. And then after a little bit of time, please be patient with us. You will get the recording itself. So I'm going to go ahead and kick it off to introductions of our NAR team members. If we can, next slide, please. Let me just introduce myself because I went ahead and get started, and then we'll go to Crystal. I'm Hannah Dannenfelser. I'm the manager of grants and resources on the community outreach team. I manage a few of our grants, including our fair housing grant for state and local associations. So if you are interested in I'll tell more about that later, but if you're interested in a fair housing grant, I'm the person to give a call to. Crystal.
Hey, I'm sorry, I'm Crystal Allen. I am the Director of Culture here at NAR. I manage the Diversity Grant Program here, and I also staff the Diversity Committee.
Go to Najee. We'll go to the order on the screen. Najee.
Hi, everybody. My name is Najee Bailey. I am our fair housing analyst and our fair housing policy and programs analyst. And I work with our fair housing director and senior political rep in regard to all of our fair housing issues. So any resources, any of our programs, any questions that you have, always feel free to reach out, and we are here for you and your support.
Nia?
Nia Duggins. I work on NAR's policy team alongside with Hannah and Christine and Colette and Najee, and also with Crystal as well. I work on several different policy initiatives that impact members' realtors' business operations, but I also work on initiatives and partnerships to close the racial homeownership gap, and one of them is the Black Homeownership Collaborative. So super excited to be here today and to engage. So thank you.
My name is, hi, thank you, Hannah. My name is Colette Massengale, and I am on the Fair Housing Policy team, along with Alexia and Najee Bailey, and I co-staff exec the Fair Housing Policy Committee, and I'm excited to be here to share some success stories and hopefully help all of you to advance fair housing and homeownership opportunities in your communities and neighborhoods.
Hi, folks. I'm Alexia Smokler. I lead our fair housing efforts here at NAR, which includes our federal advocacy here in Washington, the programming that we put out like Fair Haven, as well as supporting you all with any fair housing question you have. We're here to support you. So looking forward to diving in.
Hello, everyone. I'm Christine Wendell. I'm the Director of Community Outreach. I oversee the Community Outreach Grant and Resource Program to support you all, your advocacy, engagement, and education efforts when it comes to community development. I'm also the staff executive for the Housing Opportunities Committee.
Wonderful. Thank you, everyone. You notice this is a cross collaboration between multiple departments at the National Association of Realtors who are all working on advancing fair and attainable housing, all in a little bit different ways. So please reach out to any one of us if we can be a support. All right, so we are going to go on here. We have a brief success story panel on some really great examples that we want to share of advancing fair and attainable housing across the country. We're going to hear from Constantina Choros, who is the Government Affairs Director for the Realtor Association of Central Massachusetts. She's also an active realtor and doing some great work in Massachusetts on making fair and attainable housing accessible and fun and engaging. She's going to speak to us for a few minutes. Then we're going to go to Tam No, who is the Director of Diversity and Inclusion for the San Francisco Association. She's the staff liaison for the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Accessibility Committee and the Global Business Council. And she's going to speak about some of the work they're doing in the San Francisco region in advancing fair and attainable housing. And then you're going to hear again from Colette Massengale from our Fair Housing team, who's going to go over a number of initiatives that are available that you all can do in your local community that are available from NAR. Colette is not only on our Fair Housing team at NAR, but she also was leading up professional development work with the Maryland Realtors. So she has been at the state level. We have a couple of us up here who have been at the state and local level for various work. So we hope that some of us have been in your seats. I was in seats not in realtor world necessarily, but a couple people who've been doing state and local for a while. So I'm going to go ahead and without further ado, I'm going to kick it to Constantina to speak for a few minutes about some of the things that she's working on for you to hear about.
Thank you, Hannah. Hello, everybody. My name is Constantina, and as Hannah said, I am the Government Affairs Director, and I am also a practicing realtor. That puts me in a very unique position of not only seeing the staff side of the realtor world, but of also seeing the member side. And so when I sat down and tried to think of an event that we could do to educate our members on fair housing, I could not sit through another class on fair housing to talk to me about here are the protected classes, here's why it's important. You sit there, it's not very interactive. So I decided to go for a fair housing trivia night. I am a big dork. I like trivia, and I thought others are probably like me. And so I applied for a grant, Fair Housing Grant Level 1. We won it, and I was able to get off to the races and start with fair housing. This is our flyer that we had for the event. We did a few things that are a little bit different that I'm going to talk about in a minute. But one of the most important things when it comes to a trivia night are the questions. Next slide, please. Don't panic. You don't have to write them all down. They can be sent out, but I just wanted to show you. It's 20 questions. I found that if we went over 20 questions, I was going to lose everybody. Took us about 45 minutes to get through the 20 questions by giving people time to discuss possible answers and then to write their answers down. It's actually 50-50 federal and state. So I really kept it to what's happening at the national level and what's happening right in Massachusetts. Next slide, please. Without questions, if you have a question, you need an answer. So the answers will also be provided to you so you don't have to go digging. Many of the questions I had when it comes to the federal level came from Fairhaven. So thank you, NAR, for putting that together. You made my job a lot easier. Next slide. So here are a few things that we did that made the difference. Team formation. As a realtor, I actually am from a small mom and pop brokerage. I like to call it a boutique brokerage, but nevertheless, there are maybe 5 of us. We do not compete in numbers with some of the franchises where they show up and they come with a group. So I show up to an event and I'm typically showing up alone. So for something like this, where it was a group activity, I wanted to make sure that everybody could participate. So as people came in, you were assigned a number. 1, 2, 3, up to 6. I asked you to remember that number. After about half an hour of networking, I said, okay, all the 1s over here, 2s, 3s, and that was your team. You did not have to show up with anyone to be able to play. What really helped us was also partnering with NAREP. NAREP is the National Association of Hispanic Real Estate Professionals. By partnering with them, we were able to, one, get a different perspective on fair housing. 2, introduce the members of NAREP to the realtor world and fun activities we do and what we stand for. And 3, it made for some fantastic conversations as I walked around the room where people were debating, no, it's not that, it's this. That really helped add a lot of different perspectives, and it was very nice touch. Finally, you want to find the right MC. You don't have to go out. When I first started to look at this, I started to look who could we hire to be an MC, and then I realized that that would just be wasting resources. I come from a medium-sized association, so for us, it was about how can we do this and give back more to the members. So we reached out to our affiliate pool and saw who may have had some MC experience, and we actually drew from our affiliate pool, and it was great because it got the affiliates also to come in. We had a lovely evening. It was about 45 minutes of questions. Team 1, the team that got the most right won, and they won a $10 Starbucks gift card. And then the rest of the evening was spent eating and people kind of going, well, what did you get for that question? Well, what did you get for that question? So it's a great way for them to educate each other without just sitting in a room and having someone talk to them. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Constantina. I'm going to go ahead and pass it off to Tam No. Tam, if you could go ahead and share about what you've been working on in San Francisco.
Hi, everyone. I'm Tam No, and I currently serve as the DEIA Director at the San Francisco Association of Realtors. I've spent the last several years developing innovative programs with our Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Accessibility Committee, promoting housing equity, community collaboration, and educational outreach. My background includes organizing award-winning DEI initiatives, managing large-scale community partnerships, and building impactful educational forums, like what I'll be sharing with you today. So it's a passion of mine to help our industry not only grow in knowledge, but also grow in purpose. So today I'm excited to share with you 2 different approaches you can use to organize an educational event. So whether you're just getting started or looking to take things to the next level, I'm happy to be here and help you through that. So if you look at the slide here, on the left side, we have our easy lift, and then on our right side, we have our heavier lift event. So let's start with the easy lift. This is ideal when you want to host an educational event, but need something that's quick to execute, low stress, but still high impact. So at our association, we've done 3 simple things, simple but powerful things to celebrate Fair Housing Month. The first one we did was that we hosted a webinar with Brian Green. What's great about Mr. Brian Green is that he comes with his own materials. We reached out to him for his availability and then briefly discussed our goals for the webinar, and Brian Green took it from there. So our committee didn't have to worry so much about what kind of content we needed to put out. Mr. Brian Green is his own powerhouse. He is a wealth of knowledge, and he can share all of that information and even inspire some people. And then in early 2024, our DEIA committee launched our library, and we encouraged our members to contribute to the library by donating books to our physical library, as well as share their recommended books to our virtual library forum. So in April, we were able to promote books relevant to fair housing, which allowed our members to learn more about fair housing at their own pace. And then finally, to wrap up our Fair Housing Month, we also hosted a trivia night and happy hour, which combined learning with fun social environment that brought our members together. Our committee gathered information from the webinar, the books that we have from our library, and all of the information from the NAR Fair Housing Resources page to put together trivia questions. With this particular event, we hosted this at a local bar where we secured a sponsor to help us provide snacks, drinks, and trivia prizes. So I would say if you have affiliate members at your association looking to promote their services, they are a great source to seek sponsorships. They get a chance to align with our DEIA and fair housing efforts while sharing what they can do to provide to the community. And overall, the great thing is that NAR makes this extremely easy for you. They offer a full suite of resources, including toolkits, promotional graphics, pre-written messaging, and event templates. You don't need to spend hours designing or creating content from scratch. Everything is already done and ready for you. It's literally plug and play. And so you can see on the left side there, I included that QR code on so that you can directly get to the Fair Housing Resources webpage to find all the materials you need. And right next to that, another QR code I included is for the NAR speaker request form. This is a fantastic resource if you're not sure who to invite or want to bring in a subject matter expert. NAR has a roster of approved speakers who are ready to present on any key topics. And in fact, this is exactly how we were able to secure Brian Green for our events last year, and Alexia Smokler, who is also part of this forum and will be speaking in our Fair Housing webinar this year. And plus, there are a lot of fair housing grants available to help you cover the cost of your events. If you're having trouble seeking sponsorships, this is where NAR can really come in to support. So whether you're having to make sure you have good attendance for your in-person events, such as providing drinks, paying venue fees, or any speaker fees, these are the grants that can help support your programming and make sure that your event is successful. So these are 3 examples I have of how you can still make a strong impact without a massive production. And then let's move over to our heavier lift. So this is where you are building an event from the ground up, developing your own content, assembling speaker panels, curating programming that's customized for your community. And there's definitely more work involved. Our association, we partnered with 4 neighboring associations to produce a regional event. By collaborating, we were able to pool our strengths and share responsibilities. And best of all, we were able to get full funding support from NAR. The NAR grants, they only cap at, each level only caps at a certain amount. But because this was of 5 associations coming together, NAR gave us the full support and we were able to put on our symposium. So you'll see on the slide there as well, I have that QR code there, and then you can also take a look at our agenda to see what some of the content that we put out there. So whether it's an easy lift or a heavier lift, wherever you are in your experience with fair housing and DEI and committee work, I hope I was able to help get you to your next level.
Wonderful. Thank you, Tam. And for those of you in the audience, we are going to have a few minutes of Q&A when each of our 3 panelists are done speaking. So if you have questions that are bubbling up while they're speaking, please feel free to put those in and I'll read those out. All right, Colette, sorry to interrupt. Go ahead, Colette.
All right, thanks, Hannah. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about a few success stories, and I think kind of the key takeaway for these are the collaborations. So I'll speak on Undesign the Red Line, and then NAR's Bias Override course, and then some tips for creating an impactful fair housing course. As Hannah mentioned, before I came to NAR, I was with Maryland Realtors, where we developed a new fair housing course. So jump into Undesign the Red Line. We were fortunate enough to be able to present this exhibit at both RLM and NAR Next last year. The goal, I don't know if you all were able to attend, but the goal is really to engage attendees in what we say is a past to present journey of the historical transformation of place and race. We really want folks to have a clear understanding of the history and the role that policies and practices like redlining played in how our communities and neighborhoods were developed. In addition to showing these exhibits both at RLM and NAR Next in Boston, we also had the opportunity to show the exhibit at one of the local libraries here in DC, where I was one of the presenters and also sat on the PAG. And I'll share with you that there were a number of folks that were participating in this PAG. There were journalists, there were historians, there were professors, community groups, and churches. Really, what we came together to do is to tell those untold stories. We know that stories really do help to bring the history alive. So that was one of the key things that members said that they really enjoyed about the presentation, the exhibit when we shared it at RLM and NAR Next. So the stories really, the localized stories really help the history to come alive. The goal of the exhibit, Undesign the Red Line, is really to help us to understand some of the questions, the fundamental questions about the communities and neighborhoods in which we live. How did we get here? And what it means for where we are going in the future. So next slide, please. The members also shared that they really enjoyed the opportunity to express their own ideas about some of the solutions that we can have to some of the issues. And I just want to make a note. one of the reasons that we believe is so important to make sure that members understand our history is because we talk about things like the homeownership gap and the racial wealth gap, as these past practices and policies that directly connect us to where we are today. So that history is really important. Our goal is to make sure that as we move forward and try to address some of these challenges, we don't make past mistakes. And the great thing is that associations can use the can use an NAR grant to bring the exhibit to your association. So keep that as a partner in mind. So next slide. Another partnership, this has to do with our bias override training. And I said the theme here is collaboration. To bring members this particular training, NAR collaborated with the Perception Institute. It's an organization out of New York. And I'm happy to report that we're going to be refreshing our bias override course this year. I was lucky enough when I was at Maryland Realtors to be one of the first folks to go through the trainer session. And I have taught the course now about 10 or 11 times. And it's one of the most engaging courses I've ever had the opportunity to facilitate. So some of the things that members really spoke on who had taken the course, next slide. And really, this is my teaser for you all, hopefully to inspire you to bring NAR bias override, to use an NAR grant to bring the bias override course to your association. So just a little bit about some of the highlights. So hopefully to inspire you to bring the course to your association. One of the things that we ask members, the very beginning of the training, what role do real estate agents play in the lives of their clients and communities? This is an opportunity for members to step back and really think about the power in that role. I mean, we know that they are there being a guide, a trusted guide, helping folks through the journey of the purchase, one of the most expensive purchases that folks will ever make. So opportunity there to step back and really reflect on that role. Next slide. Just some concepts to think about that members will discuss when they take the course. The fairness paradox. What does that mean? We have values of justice and equity. We think we do, we have these values, but somehow our behaviors don't reflect these ideals. So we talk about this in the training. Next slide. We also bring in the science. I think one of the reasons that the bias override class is so impactful is we really take the time to dig into the science and talk about how the brain works and how bias plays out in the brain, right? So next slide. Please. We give definitions of the concepts. We have implicit bias. We have anxiety, identity. We talk about all the different types of concepts. And then next slide, please. And then we talk about why bias is so important, and we acknowledge. Oh, you can bring in the next slide, the whole thing. We acknowledge that we all have these biases, and then we kind of think about next slide. We think about why this is important. So we know that personal interactions or a lack of knowledge, if you don't have knowledge of a particular group, we know that assumptions and stereotypes can sometimes fill in the gap. We know that integration and genuine interaction with people from different identity groups really does help us to decrease our bias. So my call to action to all of you, next slide, is to bring NAR's bias override course to your association, where members will explore tools such as counter stereotyping and individuation to overcome bias, talk about and engage in interactive activities like the triangle exercise, and employ actionable takeaways to build your business while advancing fair housing and homeownership opportunities. So we hope that you will use an NAR grant to bring the bias override course to your association. And then lastly, just to share to the next slide.
Ask on the last one, go nice and quick because we're a little tight on time. Talk over
All right, so last one. Next slide, please. Just a few tips about creating an impactful fair housing course. When I was with Maryland Realtors, we created a new fair housing course, worked with a small group of colleagues and staff to bounce ideas. We had a theme. Our theme was building a better house. Make sure you do your resource and use the NAR Fair Housing Resource page. We put a lot of information from Color of Law. Bring in the local stories because they really make the history come alive. And then last slide, make sure you tie in that national history so members can grasp the bigger picture. Use case studies, Long Island Divided, investigation. All the materials are there for you to pull from and use. Incorporate data like NAR snapshot on race and home buying. Spotlight some hot topics to keep it fresh. Like, when we were doing it, assistance animals was one of the hot topics, and then really drive home best practices. And so with that, I'll wrap up. Thanks, Hannah, for the reminder.
Perfect. No, all good. Thank you, everybody. All right. So remember, we have a few minutes available if you in the audience have questions for our panelists that just spoke. This is your opportunity. If you were particularly excited by one of these ideas and you'd like a little bit of feedback on how you can do that in your association, this is your moment. Part of what we're working on here is giving you the opportunity to beg, borrow, and steal from others. That is encouraged, absolutely encouraged, to increase all the work we're doing all across the country. This is part of the value of the Realtor Network. So I'll give it just a minute. I was going to ask Colette, I did have a question come up that I thought of that I wanted to ask while we're seeing if other folks chime in. Is there anything you've seen not work well in developing a CE class? Anything that has to make sure not to do? Because you have a lot of of course we want to emphasize what to do, but anything to not do.
I think maybe I don't know if it was Constantina who talked about some of how they used to kind of create fair housing courses back in the day. You kind of focus on protected classes and things that people tend to, especially if they've been in the business for a while, already know. So I think one of the things that you don't want to, you obviously you want people to know the law, but really bring in that history to kind of give context to those laws, so people really understand the why behind the law. So I think focus on the history to help kind of to help kind of folks understand why we have the laws, if that makes sense.
Perfect. Thank you. I see we have a question. I'm looking for an instructor for the bias override course. Is there a good place to find a list of those? Colette, can you share that?
Yes, you can reach out to our CRD team. We have, as I mentioned, there was a train the trainer. So all the folks who are available to teach the bias override course have gone through the train the trainer. There are about 80 instructors. So Don Headkey is the point of contact for getting a bias override instructor.
Perfect. Thank you. I have a comment from the audience I'm going to read because this is helpful. Kevin Brady, thank you for chiming in. If folks want to reach out to the Long Island Board of Realtors and ask about the reforms made since Long Island Divided, boards can reach out to Marlo and I directly at govaffairs@lirealtor.com. So awesome. Very excited. Any connections we can make in the room here today are great. So thank you for that, Kevin. And then I know I just had a question. Someone asked about which grant can support the Undesign the Redline program. That would be the Fair Housing Level 2 grant, which is up to $7,500. I'll talk more about that in a few minutes. Thank you, Alexia. Don Headkey's email is DHEADTKE@NAR.realtor. So reach out to Don for support. Okay, I think I'm going to keep going here. Well, I am going to take a pause and go backwards for just a second because I did miss something at the beginning. So I want to go back. Hugh, I'm sorry, I'm going to call on you. Hugh Morris, I'm going to call on you for just a sec. When we did our staff introductions, Hugh is a part of our community outreach team. You are going to hear from him more later, but I'm just going to ask Hugh, could you just give your name, your title, a little bit about your job and how people can reach out to you for a moment?
Oh, sure. Thank you, Hannah. Yeah, so I'm the manager of the Community Development and Growth Program at NAR. I'm the staff executive for the Smart Growth Advisory Board and have a lot of resources for associations that have to do with land use issues at the local level.
Perfect. Thank you, Hugh. I'm sorry about that at the beginning. So, all right. I'm going to go ahead and move on to Alexia Smokler, who is our Director of Fair Housing Programs. As all of these initiatives, whether it's education, outreach, training, certainly are hopefully setting the stage for you to take a look at great policy initiatives in your local community and build that buy-in. So Alexia, who really leads up our fair housing team and policy at the federal level, as well as certainly we're resources for the state and local as well. So I'm going to pass it off to Alexia, who's going to speak about that. And you'll have an opportunity to ask her some questions at the end too.
Thanks, Hannah, and thank all of you for being here today. We're so glad you took the time out of your day to learn a bit more about how to promote fair housing in your community. So I hope by now you've maybe had a couple of light bulbs go on after hearing our panel. You've got some ideas percolating. We're going to be going out into breakout rooms for discussion in a little while. But first, I want to help you think about ways to raise the bar even higher. So you've seen from our panel that there are a lot of ways to advance fair housing in your association: education, events, training, symposia, trivia nights. You know, there's so many different ways you can engage and activate your members. And they're a great on-ramp to kind of level up, to take it a step further. To look at how can our association activities actually boost homeownership in our community. What does it look like for our association to be engaged in efforts to make an inclusive, diverse community where everyone can thrive as an association? So I'm going to take a little bit to talk about a few minutes to talk about advocacy and the role that it plays. So here in Washington, our top priority remains housing supply and inventory. We are somewhere around 5 million units short nationwide. This is a crisis. Our research showed last year that the number of first-time buyers is at the lowest level since we started recording the data. We've also found that the age of the first-time buyer is the oldest since we've started capturing this data. So the median first-time buyer is now 38 years old. And we know, because the history of discrimination that Colette mentioned, that first-time buyers are twice as likely to be Black or Hispanic because they were shut out of housing opportunities in the past. And now, when opportunities may be more open, prices have gone through the roof. So that means that housing accessibility and affordability is a fair housing issue. And to advance for expanding home ownership to these first generation buyers, we have to increase housing supply, right? You can't advocate for home ownership if there aren't any houses for people to buy. And where the rubber meets the road here really is at the state and local level. You know, we're working in Washington here to include some housing supply provisions in the tax bill. We'll see what happens. Considerable uncertainty there. There's also uncertainty right now at HUD and with other federal agencies that run housing programs like USDA and Treasury. Funding for local housing agencies, federal funding, may become more scarce. There are rumors that HUD field offices might be closing. So right now we don't have a whole lot of solid information. We're tracking that information as closely as we can, and we're going to be advocating with our housing industry partners here in Washington about our support for the entire housing ecosystem, from homeless shelters to housing choice vouchers to home ownership programs. So we have the spending cuts that we're working around, and then we have, I want to briefly touch on the DEI executive order. That order has been put on pause by the courts, but it does look like some of the executive actions which are labeled DEI, and by the way, they never define DEI, so we're not exactly sure what they mean, and that's one of the reasons why the courts put a pause on it. But it looks like some of these anti-DEI actions may be sweeping in some traditional fair housing activities. So your local fair housing center might have gotten its grant cut. So we're still, it's changing day by day, hour by hour, keeping track with what's going on, but we're going to be working with the administration to help them understand that fair housing and DEI are distinct. Fair housing is a consumer protection law that was passed in 1968. And it's very important for all of you to understand and your members to understand that fair housing is required by law. Our members are committed to upholding this law, and that our associations are committed to expanding home ownership. That has not changed. But now more than ever is the time for us to lean into that state and local activity and our public-private partnerships. So, housing costs, as you know, were a really hot topic in the last election, and we're starting to get some traction on housing supply legislation, despite the naysaying NIMBYs. And I'm just going to talk quickly about a couple of examples of associations that advocated for housing supply and affordability using our resources. So in Austin, Texas, the local association spent several years cultivating a closer relationship with their elected officials to help them understand about the problem of missing middle housing in Austin. They used a number of different grants, and Christine might be able to tell you about how many grants they used to host a housing summit, to issue a research report, and then they had a public education campaign to dispel misinformation about zoning changes in their community. And this all resulted in the successful passage by the city council of code amendments to reduce minimum lot sizes and to allow for more density. So they relied on multiple NAR grants to, a lot of us, when we hear the concept housing affordability, we run away, we think it's a bad word, but we are here to support you to get this message across to consumers and get this message across to policymakers. We think they're more open to it than they ever have been before. In the state of Utah, similarly, and you'll notice I'm mentioning, not the most liberal places in the country, they used NAR resources to launch an issues mobilization campaign, and their legislature adopted a package of reforms, including making hundreds of millions of dollars available to local banks and credit unions for low interest loans for affordable housing developers. Also, they cleared up some ambiguities in their land use code and created some building standards for modular homes. So creative ideas, localized solutions about how you can create more supply, more density in your market. One more example, and this here is a different approach that was taken in Atlanta by the realtors there who partnered with the Community Foundation of Greater Atlanta to preserve and create 6,000 new homeowners from historically marginalized communities. And this group, this coalition of the realtors, the city of Atlanta, this Community Foundation, and a dozen of other nonprofits raised over $220 million in combined capital, philanthropic grants, concessionary debt, and in-kind services. So they've got this whole multi-year plan drawing in different segments of the community, public, private, to create change. So I hope that some of those examples have sparked something for you. I've talked a little bit about different associations going on offense to promote housing opportunity. In our advocacy world, it's important to talk about defense too. Last year in this forum, I talked about laws we're seeing crop up at the state level, restricting the purchase of property by people from certain foreign countries. We're seeing these crop up across the country, and our realtor associations have been fighting back. So last go round in Texas and Georgia, our realtor associations partnered with ARIA, the Asian Real Estate Association of America, but also the Chamber of Commerce and a lot of other business groups to help inform policymakers about how this law, which, these laws which might have been proposed with a national security concept in mind, had a lot of unintended consequences for immigrant buyers. So our state associations partnered in those two states. They beat back those laws. Well, they've come back. The law is back in Texas. And so, and I think we're expecting it to come back in Georgia too. So once again, our state association is coalitioning. I made that into a word. I don't know if that's a verb, but now it is, with all of the different partner groups. And the political reality there is that this law might very well pass. And so they want to do the least amount of harm possible. If they need to get a law across the finish line, they're looking to get a homestead exemption. So at least the law wouldn't apply to a buyer buying their primary residence. So that was a whole lot of information, but to sum up, advocacy and fair housing, we stand on policy, we stand on our strong support for home ownership. We have to have situational awareness. federal support for these activities may be declining, that means we have to lean into our state and local, sources of funding, and to our state and local partners, our philanthropic partners. And that, takes us to coalition building, such an important part of doing advocacy on these topics. And then, finally, your tactics, you're playing offense or defense, depending upon your situation. But there's always a way to advance these priorities. Times are challenging right now, but as you've seen on this call, there are many examples of things here moving the ball, even in this context. You are our local champions. And so we thank you for your commitment to fair and attainable housing. And we are here to provide subject matter expertise, connect you up with experts. And of course, Hannah's got the money. So we're here to help you in whatever way that we can. Thanks, y'all.
Wonderful. Thank you, Alexia. Just got a comment that Alexia rocks, and I agree. Anyone, I'll give just a brief moment if anyone has any questions for Alexia as our leading up our fair housing policy work. So you've got her here. This is a great opportunity. So give it just a minute. I did see Allison Donnelly said she's on I think in relation to coalition building, I'm on a chamber committee, Vibrant Neighborhoods. I hope to be able to use NAR resources to bring more housing and placemaking. Absolutely. Our placemaking grant is a separate grant from what we're discussing today, but I'm the grant manager for that. So please feel free to reach out to me if you'd like to discuss it. And absolutely about bringing more housing. I think, please forgive me if I'm pronouncing wrong. I think it's Jamie Ferguson asks, does Alexia have a newsletter? Alexia, how can people get information from you?
I think the best source of information is our fair housing page on nar.realtor. It gets updated with all the latest news. I think it's nar.realtor/fair housing, but we'll be sure to share it out.
Thank you very much.
And to respond to Kevin, yes, Kevin wrote in the comments to stress to Scott Turner, the new Secretary of HUD, that the nation is facing an affordable housing crisis, and any cuts to affordable housing dollars in Section 8 will result in increased homelessness. Yes, Kevin, we agree, and we're meeting with Secretary Turner in a couple of days with a coalition of housing industry groups, and that message will be conveyed.
I got another question came in. Stephanie, again, I'm going to apologize for mispronunciations. I try to be good about this and I'm doing my best. Stephanie Juritsma says, where should we look for state-specific fair housing stats? Does NAR have any? I don't know the answer to that.
What kind of, we have stats on like home ownership rates broken down by state. I know there are stats, I think like fair housing complaints broken down by state. So it might depend on what kind of stats you're looking for, but we can certainly follow up with you afterwards and try to help you find something useful.
Stephanie, I'm going to stick my email in the chat. If you want to shoot me a note, I can forward your question around to see where we can get you an answer to. We've got, thank you, Alexia. You are on top of your game. Absolutely. Couple thank yous. All right. I'm going to keep going for the sake of time. This is a quick moving training. So we're going to keep going to grants. This is where we have money for you to do all of these great ideas. This is not pie in the sky ideas. We can actually help you get them done. So first going to start with Crystal Allen to talk about our diversity reimbursement grant. Crystal, will you share that grant, please?
Sure. Thank you, Hannah. Again, I'm Crystal Allen and I manage the diversity reimbursement grant. So now let's talk about money. I think that first slide is up. Thank you. Oh, I'm so sorry. I thought I had that on mute. Okay. We're going to talk about grants and what the reimbursement grants do. The grants support local and state association efforts for DEI. There are 2 level grants. There's a level 1 and a level 2. The maximum grant amount for level 1 is $1,000. This grant supports state and local activities in key target areas, local events with the goal of advancing DEI within the association, with your members, with your board of directors, collaboration with the local chapter, reminder, a lot of talk has been talked about today about our partners and NAR partners. We have four, I would say, official partners, ARIA, which is the Asian Real Estate Association, and also the LGBTQ Plus Alliance, NAREP. I think San Francisco used them for an event, as well as NAREP. So we do have four, and most of those do have some chapters, maybe in your local area or region. You can also use a level 1 grant to send your association officer or a senior staff member to one of the partner conferences, one of their annual conferences. Applications are now being accepted. Money and funds are available until our commitment level has been met in 25. So if you are interested in sending your leadership or your staff to one of the conferences this year, just please feel free to reach out if you have any questions about a level 1 grant. Again, there's level 2, which is the maximum amount is $5,000. The level 2 grants are designed to increase diversity and inclusion among association leadership, and talking about maybe making or bringing DEI to the core work that you do. You can use these grants for discussion or workshops with a clear learning of outcomes, planning activities that help your local association infuse inclusion and diversity in your core work that you do. Maybe a strat plan, maybe you're thinking about including it in a strat plan that you already have, or maybe even thinking about creating a separate plan that focuses on inclusion and diversity. Also, these applications are also still being accepted now until our funding levels are up. I don't know if I missed anything, Hannah, but if I did, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me and I'll be happy to assist you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Crystal.
Thank you, Hannah.
All right. I'm the Fair Housing Grant Manager here, which is available within our community outreach team to further the mission of fair housing. Our level 1 grant is available for up to $3,000 to help fund educational programs and initiatives or book discussions. This is for targeted trainings towards your realtors. We commonly see book clubs. There is a book list on the NAR website if you're looking for ideas for books, but for Color of Law is a popular one. So if you're looking to host a book club, level 1 can help you fund that for up to $3,000. Also can fund the bias override class or targeted CE classes from your association or your state. So take a look at that level 1. The level 2 grant is up to $7,500 available for more community-based outreach as it relates to fair housing. You could host a fair housing symposium if you're using the That's Who We Are fair housing assets. It can help marketing assets, that it can help with that work. It can offset the cost of legislative initiatives. I would say one of the most common uses for the level 2 is for conference, kind of broader scale conferences. But when you heard about Undesign the Red Line earlier, I know we had that question, so I'm just reiterating, that is something that could be funded, they could contribute to the funding for Undesign the Red Line. Especially when you're getting a partnership-based outreach, level 2, and funding is available on our fair housing grants. One thing I just want to highlight, we distinguish with the diversity grant and the fair housing grant that you heard about what the focus is for the diversity grant. Christine and I, who's about to present, we all coordinate that if you put in an application and it's a little bit off base in terms of how we distinguish between each of these, we will coordinate with you to figure out which one is the correct grant. All right, I'm going to pass to Christine.
Thanks so much, everyone. Thanks, Hannah. So the Housing Opportunity Grant Program supports Realtor Association initiatives that create or improve systems, programs, and policies that expand access to housing that is affordable, attainable, and accessible. And the goal of the grant program is to position realtors working through their associations pretty much as leaders in improving their communities and creating more affordable housing opportunities. So the initiatives funded through this program include housing fairs, buyer education, affordable housing program education for realtors, down payment assistance awareness campaigns, financial literacy initiatives, anti-NIMBY awareness campaigns, policy forums, housing assessment studies, and density ordinance changes, just to name a few. The grant has 3 levels as shown on the screen. Level 1 funds member education, guest speakers, and stakeholder meetings. Level 2 supports partnerships, housing assessments, and legislative analysis. And level 3, that's our Going Wide grant, backs community-wide initiatives like community housing visioning sessions, homebuyer education series, and pro-housing awareness campaigns, which are needed in this environment. Applications opened December 4th of last year through October 15th this year, until commitment levels reach 100%. And we're not there yet, so there's plenty of room to grow and there's plenty of time to apply for the Housing Opportunity Grant Program and the Community Outreach Grant Program in its entirety. Reimbursements, this is important, requests must be submitted by Friday, December 19th. So plan ahead, schedule a community outreach planning session with us to get your ideas going and to get your initiative funded. And there are a ton of success stories. Google the Realtor Party success story site, and you'll see a number of different success stories as you see on screen, and especially the ones that Alexia mentioned that can inspire you to bring housing opportunities back to your community. And back to you.
Wonderful. And Christine, we got a question for you. Can these grants be stacked with housing opportunity grants? A popular question we get a lot. Do you want to answer that one?
I'm sorry, I got to read the question. Yes,
Oh yeah, Kevin said
absolutely.
maybe stacked. You're on mute now, Christine.
Sorry, you can go in on an initiative and stack the grants. Just call me for more information on that. I'm happy to give you some examples.
I'm just gonna, Kevin Brady, I'm gonna recommend reaching out to Christine directly about your question regarding mega boards, as that's a tailored program specifically for the associations that fall within that category. So maybe Christine, would you mind sticking your email address? You probably have it, but would you mind sticking your email address in the chat in case he'd like to send you an email?
Sure, I'm happy to talk to you about the mega board program, Kevin.
Let's start with Tam because she's in the panel section, and that'll make it a little easier, and then we can go to the next one. So go ahead, Tam.
Hi, everyone. So I was in the purple room, and our group shared about the different ways we use the Fair Housing Grant. Some of our associations have experience with doing symposiums, and one of the ways to use that grant is to bring in good speakers to really drive the attendance for the event. We also talked about bringing other associations, bringing in different types of keynote speakers, such as appraisers. One of the associations, Scottsdale, this year is bringing in, is having copies of books for 15 cents on the dollar to encourage more education. And then another association used their grant to put up billboards to help promote fair housing. And so those were some of the ideas we talked about what the associations are using the grants for. And also sharing ideas with different speakers who are willing to travel. And you could also use the grant to invite them to your association to speak as well.
Great, thank you, Tam. Let's try again with Maria McHale from the Orange Room with Crystal.
Hey there, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, go ahead.
Oh, perfect. So in the Orange Room, we were talking a little bit about how in some communities, the Fair Housing Challenge seems overwhelming when we're starting from a place where members and the larger community may or may not even be on board with the need for change in the first place. And so we had some really good discussion about how we can educate in small ways by tying it to things that are functionally useful, like down payment or first-time homebuyer resources, working with other partner organizations that have a good base in the area, like AARP or community organizations, and then just working in your association internally to make sure that everyone's on the same page so that you're all going in the same direction toward the same goal when it comes to educating about the need for change and the need for this programming.
Great, thank you, Maria. Let's go to Allison D, who was in Najee's room, the light blue room.
Okay.
Let's come back to Allison in just a minute if we, or do we have her?
Yeah, my audio came up. Okay.
Okay.
So I was in the blue room. I believe that was our color. And a lot of us were smaller or newer and still, working on different ideas. But one of the ones that I hope I can share it
one of the groups was working on an amazing race type of activity that started at their association and brought groups to the next location as they correctly identified the answers to different fair housing situations. They said they were, difficult questions so that they could search them and, work together to get the answer. They'd go to each location, and at the final location, you'd obviously determine who was the winner by who arrived there first. And then they'd go across the street to a restaurant and have a nice evening and, have a meal together and just build some camaraderie around that exercise. I thought that was fantastic. We had a couple of other ideas. One of the questions is, how we could really get into a community and actually bring our event to a community that is struggling with housing and somehow bring them into the conversation versus it just being a conversation with the realtor members who we know, they have buy-in, they understand, from their perspective, but giving us and the realtors a chance to hear it from the community that needs the most help. And that's the crux of it.
Sorry, that was great. Thank you, Allison. Sorry, I might have started talking and then muted by accident. Let's go to Julie Lyde in Christine's room.
Hi, I actually don't know our room color, so thank you for saying Christine's room. Our focus was on discussing building relationships with the multicultural groups and veterans groups. So we were in a really good scenario here because Justin and my group had done some things in the past and had some good ideas about building those relationships, having coffee with someone and connecting with them about their mission and how that fits with us. And I really needed to hear that. And he has had he is working towards a home buyer symposium and was looking to connect with veterans organizations. And so I'm from an area that is veteran heavy. So that was a really good connection. So just working with multicultural partners and veterans groups, establishing that relationship first, and just knowing that that's a good foundational step, and highlighting priorities and then growing that relationship from there. Partnering initiatives would include like networking events, supported by the DEI grants and homebuyer symposiums, and then outreach initiatives supported by the Housing Opportunities Grant and the Level 2 there. So really great session. I enjoyed that we were a small group, but I think that just being able to talk about how like sharing knowledge and resources helps kind of those relationships, and it's a good start.
Wonderful. Thank you, Julie. Let's go to Stephanie Moody from Nia's room.
Hi, can you all hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
So we started out talking about some ideas pertaining to the fair housing grants, and one of the members shared the success of their book club that they had at the state association. They actually had a waiting list, so that was pretty cool. They also expressed interest in that getting people such as yourselves who have already just spoken in this webinar to actually come and share from a national perspective some of the things that are going on with their association would be amazing. And then we also talked about, one of the other members shared a social media push they're doing right now for members to recommend books and podcasts. And then they're going to share those out in the month of April and hope to bring in a speaker that has either authored or written or shared one of the podcasts at their general membership meeting in October. And then we moved to kind of some policy ideas where one of the members is interested in developing coalitions and relationships with policymakers. So one of the other members shared their efforts where they had a meeting and luncheon and built a real estate coalition where there's a bunch of interested parties from the public that get together and talk about all kinds of policy issues in that realm. And so they are going to they still talk, and they're going to try to move on to host a seminar on housing availability to educate their members and members of the public.
Thank you, Stephanie. I've got Teresa Tilton from Alexia's room.
Hi, good afternoon. We were in the Coral Room, and we focused on collaboration and building relationships with organizations such as your Housing Mortgage Finance Agency, your Division of Civil Rights or Fair Housing, Freddie Mac. There's many programs available, resources and funding for clients, and to educate our members on where they can direct their clients, and building those relationships and then maintaining the relationships. We talked about those positive small wins and giving our members something to focus on, to build up to. Don't give up. It's hard, but don't give up and keep moving forward with even the smallest of wins. Using member testimonials, if you have a session that works great or somebody hears something that they need, to then utilize that and tell that story. The advocacy part was huge, and sort of incorporating all of that about those small wins and moving that forward with members and just keeping it in front of the members. So thank you. It was a great group.
Thank you, Teresa. Caitlin from my room.
Hi. So in our room, we initially started discussing the CE credits because in Michigan, you need 1 CE credit of fair housing every year. We had a couple Michigan friends in the room. So we talked about how people are getting those out to their members and having events that their members want that also satisfy the CE requirements. We discussed a fair housing summit utilizing the Fair Housing Level 2 grant. And another person discussed having a documentary about local issues and history and having that kind of perspective of taking the historical approach to fair housing. And then we ended up talking about how there's kind of been some apathy to fair housing efforts recently, and that's kind of been across the board. I'm sure a lot of people have been experiencing it. So we discussed how having your members be the champions and like bring the energy and encourage other people to do so is kind of the best way to do that. And community or having committees is a good way to do that as well, because they can then encourage their network and so on and so forth to kind of get everyone interested or at least acknowledging it. And then we talked about some successes that people have had. One was using a grant to write books and have a book club and have the author come and speak. So we just kind of shared some stories about that. And yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you, Caitlin. Did I catch everybody? Will you please speak up? If I missed one of the speakers, please feel free to speak up. I think I got everybody. Facilitators, did I get all of your folks? All right. I think I'm gonna take that as good. We have more, like I said, please stay on because we still have a few more resources to share with you. These are additional NAR resources that can be really helpful to your association. So I'm going to go ahead and pass it to Najee Bailey. Najee, if you could share some of those resources that you have available from NAR.
Yes. Welcome again. You guys have heard from Alexia and Colette about our number of programs and policies that we work on here at NAR for our members. And so Fairhaven 2.0 launched earlier this year. And so Fairhaven 2.0 is an update to our original Fairhaven from the mind of the brilliant Alexia Schmokler. And this has updated historical section where you can really strengthen and see history come to life. We read it all the time, but being able to see it, grasp it, hear about it, and the visuals are just very helpful, as well as new training simulations. So, you have gone through the first set of simulations, which helped, strengthen and update your tool belt. And now we're going to continue to take it and hammer it out. And so Fairhaven 2.0 will fulfill the NAR fair housing education requirement, our fair housing training requirement, every 3 years. And it is our free online version for members. It can be found at fairhaven.realtor. Any other questions that you have about it, please always feel free to reach out and provide any feedback that you have, because we want to just continue to make it stronger for you all. I'm sorry, I don't know if we had time for that video or if we were just going over to the Fair Housing Champions.
Will you remind me of the video a minute?
Yeah, it was like a.
Yeah,
might be a little- Yeah, go ahead. I think we can squeeze it in. We might go 1 minute over, so forgive us if we go a minute over, but go for it. And the audio is not coming through on our end, Najee.
That's
No.
okay,
the
it has
audio.
subtitles.
No.
Well, how about
Yeah, I
Najee,
still
can
can't
we,
hear it.
we're not getting the audio, so that is. and
But
we have a
we
note
will share
here
this out
down.
with the
Yes.
resources, right? So
Yes,
we'll have
everybody's
it.
getting a debrief email.
Perfect. So you will actually have access to this video. You can share this with your association, your members, your staff. We want everybody to take it. So it's an exciting opportunity, and we're happy to have it for you. So the other program that we have.
You just froze, I think. I'm not sure if that's me.
Is our Fair
You go
Housing
ahead.
Champion Award. And our Fair Housing Champion Award, this is our annual award where our winners are announced every Fair Housing Month. The goal is to spotlight our members, of course, who are doing amazing work in the community in regard to, accessing home ownership, being able to break down fair housing barriers, actually, for members of communities. I think my group had a great share out where we talked about going to the communities, and this is what we want to do. This is what we've been working to do. So our nomination process will open in the beginning of June and of this year. And, we want to be able to take applications from staff and, from our AEs, our GADs, our education directors, everybody who works with our members in your local and state spaces. You guys know your members best. You know what they're up to. And we want to know, and I know that the rest of the country wants to know as well. So we're really making a really strong push. Our applications are going to open up in June. We will take your stories. We will take your people, anything that you have at any moment. So please don't hesitate to reach out to us. Share what's going on with your members. Share what's going on in your community. And the winner of our Fair Housing Champion Award gets a $5,000 prize from our partner Realtor.com, which goes towards a housing related nonprofit organization of the members' choice. And so we want to just reemphasize, we really, really we're working to lean with our associations to learn your members, our members collectively, we're all together here, but we want to, really highlight the work that you all are doing in your locals and state communities. So.
Wonderful. Thank you, Najee. Stick with us. We have another resource here, Hugh Morris, who you saw earlier. This is a really cool tool. Actually, especially my breakout room, this would be a good tool based on some of the things we talked about. So Hugh, will you share about our planning and zoning class?
Yes, thank you. And likewise, yes, it came up in our the Orange Room also. So, and Alexia spoke about how important it is to expand the housing supply. So this is just one slide, 59 seconds on our planning and zoning class and sort of why it's relevant to this discussion. And there are various ways that planning and zoning can impact housing supply. Restrictive zoning can, particularly if it's like single family only, minimum lot size, height restrictions, density restrictions, minimum number of parking spaces. All of these constrain the types of buildings that can be built. And limited supply drives up costs, and increased costs exacerbate the disparity of who can live in that community. And so NAR has developed this planning and zoning class, which is available through the Center for Realtor Development. And it goes over all the basics of community planning and zoning, some of the state-of-the-art concepts that communities are using these days. And the good news is also you can use our Smart Growth Level 1 grant for $3,000 to help underwrite the cost of that class. And so you should feel free to email me if you have any questions about it. And I will pop my email address in the chat. Thank you.
Wonderful. Did you mention the funding, how they can pay for this? Did you already say that?
Oh, with the grant, yes, the Smart Growth grant, yes.
Perfect. Thank you. Wonderful. So you have a whole bunch of resources, hopefully some ideas from the breakout room. You are going to be getting, again, you're going to be getting an email that is a compilation of these resources that we went over. Please feel free, if you have thoughts or feedback coming out of this session, please feel free to send me a note. I think my email was in the chat. I'm going to put it there again. Going to ask you to please fill out this survey. We really would love your feedback on this workshop and training so that we can continue to hopefully offer it in the future as well and be available for folks. So stay tuned. We're really grateful for all the work y'all are doing at the state and local level. We here at NAR are a resource for you. We're really glad to have you here today. I'm going to go ahead, just keep us on time at 3:30. If anyone from elected, if you have any final thoughts, feel free to chime in. Christine, if you have any thoughts from community outreach team, feel free to chime in, but I'm going to go ahead and stop talking and just say thank you.
Thanks, everybody.